All protocols observed. Good morning, everyone. We are having a very rich day so far. We have garnered so much information from the first segment, and in this session, we are poised to explore monitoring and evaluation as a best practice in social and community development. We often hear that millions of dollars are invested in communities. At the same time, we hear that oftentimes we're not seeing the changes in these communities. So we see improved sanitation facilities, roads are built or improved. We have social infrastructure, so we have clinics, health centers, new schools, we have entrepreneurship programs, etc. We see those tangible services or products. However, what happens after that? Is it that we focus oftentimes on these tangible results of our interventions without seeing the bigger picture? How is the community developing as a result of these tangibles? In addition, how do we know what works? So we pump all these monies into communities, but how do we know that this intervention has made a difference? How do we know that this intervention can be replicated? On what basis do we terminate funding or extend funding for an intervention? How do we account for the results of these interventions? And finally, if there is monitoring and evaluation as a critical component of these interventions, what happens to the data and the information that is derived from the system? How is it used? How is it misused? Those are some of the questions that we would like to have answered by the end of this session. We're very happy to have presentations on two interventions from Honduras and Jamaica. With us, we have two M&E practitioners. The first is Mr. Brian Gregory, and the second is Mr. Hugo Castillo. Our first presenter is Mr. Brian Gregory, and he is an M&E specialist with the Citizen Security and Justice Program within the Ministry of National Security. He has been employed within this role since 2015, and in this very year, he was promoted to M&E manager. As the M&E specialist, he had direct responsibility for the Kingston metropolitan area and the central regions within Jamaica, which spans 36 of the 50 communities served by the CSJP. As the M&E manager, he has direct oversight of all M&E activities for the program. His achievements include the transition of the CSJP from a paper-based documentation and reporting system to an electronic system through the design and implementation of several training protocols as part of the Upshot software, which I'm sure he will elaborate on shortly. His current strategic focus, however, is on improving the findings and reporting capabilities of the program whilst applying a scientific approach. Today, he will share the M&E journey taken by the CSJP, and we hope that by the end of his presentation, you would have had an increased appreciation of the role that M&E can play in complex programs such as the CSJP. So please help me welcome Mr. Gregory.
Thank you, Marsha, and good morning, everyone. Now, the journey of the Citizen Security and Justice Program, transforming lives through social intervention. The Citizen Security and Justice Program is powered by the IDB, the UK Aid, and Global Affairs Canada. We'll be focusing on for this presentation to provide an overview of CSJP and the state of M&E before CSJP 3, outline the basis for the implementation of a robust M&E system, the major achievements of CSJP M&E, challenges in implementing M&E, and I'm going to leave here with a conclusion and recommendations for your own projects and for future projects such as this. Now, I'm going to take you to a story of two farmers, Farmer X on the left and Farmer Y on the right. Now, Farmer Y, both of them are corn farmers, and they planted the corn. Now, Farmer Y planted the corn and left it up to the elements. Didn't have no system in place to check, to monitor, to ensure the plants were growing, while Farmer X over there did the necessary investments. Now, at the end, when it's time for harvesting, Farmer Y is sitting down with half a bag of produce. And what you see with Farmer X? Farmer X have multiple bags, and then he can bank and cash in and return on investments. Now, I just want to leave that in your minds, and then we're going to go through what happened in the Citizen Security and Justice Program. Now, this is our third phase, as I explained to you before. Phase 1 started in 2001 in 9 communities in Kingston and St. Andrew. There were no formal M&E system in place. The main focus of M&E was to report on achievements and targets. No designated staff with direct responsibility for M&E, and evaluation was merely limited to a final evaluation at the end of the phase. Now, CSJP 2 improved slightly, started in 2009, and it expanded to 50 communities across 8 parishes. Had some gaps identified in CSJP 1, but it improved slightly with introduction of a community survey, which was done in 2011, 12, and 13, and 1 dedicated staff with direct responsibility for M&E. What was the issue? Now, the previous phases had no robust system in place to collect and store data on beneficiaries and interventions, to provide evidence to guide the development and the continuous improvement of program interventions, to provide evidence to support decision-making in the program, and to evaluate and assess the impact of the program. Very important. Now, why was an M&E system needed for CSJP 3? The final evaluation of CSJP 2 highlighted several challenges and made some recommendations. Key among these was the program did not have a formal system of selecting the most at-risk individual in targeted community. It had weak monitoring and evaluation, and it needed an electronic database system. M&E was required to support the shift to enhance targeting through risk assessment, the new case management approach, the decision-making for a large and complex program as CSJP, the increased demand for reports and tracking progress, and evidence-based intervention. So we need evidence in designing and implementing interventions. Evaluation of the program for intended outcomes and the impact of these interventions. Now, how does the CSJP M&E system look? I can take you through these 5 points. We had a monitoring and evaluation plan. It outlines the results framework, the results matrix, a logic model that builds up from output to outcome to impact. We had a number of tools developed. We had the evaluation plan, the monitoring plan. We had terms of reference. All of that was a part of our monitoring and evaluation plan. Now, you need dedicated, competent, and motivated staff to drive an M&E process. Now, it's new to most organizations, so you need champions to push it forward. You need something to track data so that you can analyze the data. You cannot analyze data if you don't have it. You need to have it first, then analyze it and make sense of it. Now, very importantly, support of senior management, very important. And we had a technical advisory team made up of experts to guide the M&E process, and our wonderful IDPs who assist us. You need an organization culture that supports M&E. M&E is not only reside in the unit, but everyone in an organization need to appreciate monitoring and evaluation, their own roles in the process. So these are some of the achievements in monitoring. The transition from a paper-based to an electronic system. Those are some of the elements, and reporting on our progress. And we do a number of internal pre-post tests and analysis of data just to design and implement our programs. Our evaluations were largely community surveys, the midterm and process evaluation, outcome evaluation, and social norm study that has been completed in 2019 to guide a social marketing campaign. We currently have in progress 2 impact evaluations, one on parenting, as the first speaker mentioned, very important, and one on vocational skills training. Now let us take you through some of the achievements, some of the results that we use to determine what decision we make in CSJP. Now we have risk assessment and case management, which is our main focus in CSJP. We've done several analyses on the data, and it shows that 40% of our clients had a substance misuse issue. Now, this information led us to partner with the National Council for Drug Abuse in delivering substance misuse treatment to our clients. After reassessment, 30% of them made a positive change, while 58.1% made no change. Now, you might say the 58.1% is high, but behavior change takes time, and as the first speaker said, 2 to 3 years it takes for somebody to really change behavior, but 30% is an healthy result. Anger management improved 42.9%, and importantly, protective factors. Now, when you're treating at-risk clients, you always have to look in building protective factors, and that has improved by 33.4%. Now, 40.4% of clients showed improvement in their overall risk levels. The findings from the risk assessment analysis also highlight that clients were at the highest risk level showed greater improvement after reassessment. Now, this has some policy implications for the future. Now, the government has to answer the question, should we invest in the most at-risk youth because they show the greatest potential for change, or should we invest in medium risk? Now, based on the data, it is shown that medium risk take a longer time and more investment in improving their risk levels. Interventions should focus on building protective factors, and community-wide interventions are critical to support individual behavior change. For the vocational skills training, we had a situation where 30% of our clients were dropping out of training. We do a predictive analysis using our script, free software, very useful. We're on a decision tree model, and we found out that the clients that were dropping out were under 25 years old, and they had a very high pro-criminal association, which means they were friends with gangsters or a part of a gang. And this was predicting 80% of our clients. Now, useful information. Now, this led us to implement ramp-up psychosocial support. The case managers went through a series of training, including motivational interviewing and social work, and lead us in achieving marked improvement in the attendance and the completion rate for our clients. Now, parenting, very important. CSJP parenting program is similar to the CCCP program. I don't know if most of you know it, but what we do is we implement a parenting program that takes parenting trainers inside the home and deliver a structured curriculum to parents. Now, before this structure, we were delivering workshops, and they were not consistent over a particular period of time. This was not successful for CSJP because parents had trouble coming to the workshop. They had challenges financially, and they didn't have anyone to take care of the child when they go out for the workshops. Now, in 2008, a new program was developed and piloted in St. James, a home-based program, as I mentioned. The initial data shows that there were some improvement with the program, and the model was subsequently adopted by the National Parenting Commission and scaled up in 2007 in CSJP in all 3 regions. The impact evaluation, the preliminary results shows improvement in parent-child relationship. The child feels more connected with the parents, and positive changes in parenting practices. However, this increases stress levels of parents, and parents report increase in financial challenges stemming from the shift in their new parenting practices. So it was putting more pressure for the parents to perform, to treat the children with a particular structure. The M&E unit was seeing challenges with M&E unit. So being in M&E, we were seen as the police. Everyone thought that we were here to police them, to correct them, to lay down the controls and the law. Persons were non-compliant initially. There was some level of resistance. And the new requirement for the staff in terms of the instruction, the tools that they have to complete was daunting to them. Procurement was also a challenge, delays in procurement. When you're doing an evaluation, you want swift turnaround and swift response. Now, procurement, you have to abide by the procurement rules. So you have to keep that in mind, and this causes some level of delays. And then the ethical consideration for having a control trial. Now, you have a control group and a treatment group, and you're delivering services. It's always some level of ethical dilemma. So you have to bear that in mind. Then we have to incentivize persons participating in the program, and that increased the cost for the intervention. So in concluding, a robust monitoring and evaluation system has proven to be vital for tracking progress or reporting on the program, decision-making, continuous improvements to intervention and service to treat clients, and effective implementation of the program. Now look at Mr. Big Man, right? Now you see he's looking down on the small people, but they're saying, oh, he's monitoring. It's the latest fashion. So I want to leave you with the fact that monitoring should be the latest fashion. It's supposed to be on the first thing you think about, in your subconscious. In concluding, it's important to ensure that an M&E unit is established with motivated, technical, and competent staff. Senior executive sponsorship and support is critical for the success of any M&E implementation. You need an M&E plan. Can't go anywhere without a plan. You need budget support. A lot of persons believe that, oh, it's M&E, so you must cut the budget. You cannot get your results and your evidence to support your program. The organization culture which supports M&E implementation, very critical, and my co-workers are here in support of me, and I am glad because it was some journey, and most of them are here just to support me, which means everybody is with M&E. And then you have an M&E champion to evangelize. And I use that word, you need it to be evangelized in your organization. And I'm going to leave you with this. When designing an evaluation, especially an impact evaluation, the evaluation should fit the intervention rather than the intervention fitting the evaluation. Thank you.
Thank you, Evangelist Gregory. I'm sure you'll agree with me that that was a very insightful and informative presentation. If you were not sold before on M&E as a best practice, I hope that you have a greater appreciation having received Brian's evangelism. All right, time is against us, so I'm going to move quickly to our next presenter, who traveled approximately 1,005 kilometers across the Caribbean Sea from the Central American country of Honduras to Jamaica. He's Mr. Hugo Castillo, and he's going to present on a project that he is currently the M&E specialist for with the Honduras Social Investment Fund. I think that is akin to our Jamaica Social Investment Fund. But just to give you some information about Mr. Castillo, he works with FHIS, which is the Honduras Social Investment Fund, and that entity is an independent government agency that operates under the District Department of Social Development and Inclusion in Honduras. The fund was created in 2000 to plan, organize, guide, and control several government social programs. Among these programs are the National Program for Sustainable Rural and Urban Development and the Autonomous Water and Sewage Pipeline Service, which are financially, technically, and administratively independent from the central government. Mr. Castillo is an architect, and he also possesses a master's degree in city regeneration. He has extensive experience in the development of projects, including infrastructure, social housing, urban development, neighborhood upgrading, and crime and violence prevention through community participation. He is also a professor of the Universidad José Cecilio del Valle, Tegucigalpa, Honduras. Tegucigalpa is the capital of Honduras. Yeah, you may applaud. That was a mouthful. We are very happy to have Hugo share with us the Honduran experience, and I'm going to ask you to help me welcome as he presents on the use of baseline in project design.
Hi. Thank you for that warm welcome. And this presentation comes with a warning. I would like to know how many of you guys are government workers? None? And now I would like to know, how many bosses do you have? How many bosses? Who's your boss? Boss? Your manager? How many do you have? 3, 4, 5? Well, I'm a government worker, and I cannot figure that out yet. 4, 3, I don't know. Well, the important thing is that when I passed this presentation through my supervisor, he told me that I couldn't do this presentation. I couldn't talk bad about the government, and I couldn't talk bad about the police. And I was like, what? I'm really sorry, you're making my job really hard. So the good news, none of them are here. And guess what? It's not the government employee who's going to be talking today. It's going to be the citizen. The citizen, the father, and I really love my country, and I'm really sorry I have to talk bad things about it today, but what Hugo says today in Jamaica, it stays in Jamaica. And if someone in Honduras finds out, I know it's my colleagues from the IDB who told me. So bearing this in mind, we're going to go through this presentation. And I'm very happy to be here in Jamaica because 20 years ago, we came on a study tour when we were starting our neighborhood upgrading projects. We were like totally clueless on what to do with so many informal settlements. And in that occasion, the World Bank financed a study tour, and we came here to Jamaica and we saw your community renewal project. And some of the things we do in my country are based on your experience. So in a way, this presentation might be an evaluation of what we have done, good or bad. I'm going to go back in 2011, where my country had the highest homicide rates. We had up to 87 per 100,000 households, persons. And let me tell you how that was. And this here, yeah, this is like a cell phone. And if you happen to go into the street with your cell phone, you might get killed for that. And I don't know, like, anyone in my country who has not been robbed. I don't know if it's the same in here, but that is how we live. I mean, my father, I have been robbed, most of my family, and if you go into public transportation, the situation it's like really bad. But I think that back in 2011, we hit the bottom. We had the highest crime levels, I think, ever. Only those countries that were in war had highest levels, and this created like a national emergency. And as Professor Wallace was telling, we started putting funding on the security. On the next slide, please. And we started with the police. I know the professor mentioned that was not the best practice, but at the moment I think it was, since the police in my country, if you were to go to a police station, they had no uniforms, they had no toilets, they had no running water, there were no cars, so it was impossible for them to give service. There was also a bad image of the police. If you were stopped by the police, you would get very scared. And that was the general feeling we had. As well, the government was not doing well as well. When I went into the conference and started the assemblies to launch the neighbor upgrading project, people will address me and say, oh man, another lying politician who's promising this and that. So that's the context we had back in 2011. And we started putting funding on the police, on the judiciary system. The police improve a lot. Now we have a formal police academy. We have better service, as well as the infrastructure and the logistics have improved greatly. On the other hand, on the next slide, we also have invested a lot in the crime prevention, especially on the youth. The pictures I have in here are from, this is called the Sports and Value Program. In our neighborhood upgrading project, we have tried everything. Vocational training, values, but this one has been successful. The last time we launched workshops where you can become an electrician or a construction worker, and we just got half the enrollment. But with this, everyone wants to enroll in the sports projects. Oh, well, 10 minutes left, okay. And then the next, please. And then we got a lot of investments, and the funding came from a special tax, which taxed every bank transaction, credit card transaction, but I think it was 0.1%, but still it was a lot. And the big question was that really working? Was that having any impact? And back at the time, we didn't know. We didn't know because we didn't have reliable data. We could ask the police, but no one would believe the police. We could ask the government, but the government wasn't reliable as well. So we came up with this solution. The next slide, please. Oh, sorry about that. This one's the architect. I like the building. This is the the facility for the Violence Observatory. This was set back in 2006, since we had such a great crime incidents that we have to monitor if these projects were having the actual impact. This was an initiative that came from, and the thing that we want to do is really get a big picture of what are the problems that we are facing. We want to identify who is in risk, who are the poorest, and therefore, and in that way, we could design a better project. But over our experience, we have done this ever since 2000. But in the meantime, we have noticed that we did the baseline, but then we tend to forget. We collected all of this data, and then nobody knew where the data was or what it was for. So we came with this, which is, and the next slide, please. The next one, please. Someone came with the idea that we should have this published on the web. These pictures that you see are just screenshots from our baseline study. It's the actual address is there, plataforma-amib-honduras.com. And then we had, in here we have the baseline study, the midterm evaluation, and the final evaluation. Anyone can access this database, and you can do filters, and then you can look for the information. In the next slide, please. And the baseline will produce these reports. And these ones are used every day to plan what are we going to offer as development opportunities. Anyone in the Secretary of Education, in the Ministry of Social Inclusion can look through our database. The database is so powerful that you could ask, I want to know the names of the 5 poorest children in the neighborhood, and it will tell you that. And then you can go and have bring assistance to them. And well, you might think it's really expensive, but it costs like 120 grand, and our project has a budget of $20 million. That's a cost of the study, and we use it like every day, like just to set targets and to identify vulnerable groups. And it's a good thing that now everyone is using. Social workers and stuff, we use that. And we have been able to keep track of what we're doing and knowing that it is effective and that we are attending the individuals that are most at need. And this is some of the basic conclusions. Now we can build more reliable community profiles. We can do custom design projects. We could map beneficiaries and identify vulnerable groups, and we can build alliances. So if you have, you can visit the website and you can check that out. This was an IDB initiative, and it's, I think it's a wonderful tool, and we use it every day at the office. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugo, for a very another insightful presentation. Really situating baseline studies within the context of monitoring and evaluation. And that last, or maybe it was the penultimate slide that you presented, it really established a baseline study as that start point for your intervention. And then subsequently, you will have your midterm evaluation study and your end of project evaluation study. It's, you know, you did say that it was not expensive, 120,000 US, right? Was it US dollars?
I mean, compared to a 20 million budget of a project,
exactly.
So it's, yeah, it is expensive, though.
Okay.
And I mean, it's 120 grand, but compared with the total investments of $20 million,
Yes.
I think it's acceptable.
Yes, absolutely. And certainly because it is so accessible to stakeholders, it can be used for a myriad of purposes. And I think that's one of the key messages that you'd want to communicate. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. Okay, Ms. Timekeeper, how much time do I have? All right, so we're going to segue into a brief panel discussion involving our 2 presenters as well as 2 other persons. The first is Mr. Sean McGregor. And Mr. Sean McGregor has been a program manager at Rise Life Management Services, an NGO, since 2008. And he will help to present the perspective on M&D as a best practice from an NGO's lens. He has played a pivotal role in the agency's success in designing and delivering impactful projects for vulnerable populations. He boasts particular expertise in project management, grant proposal writing, and community and youth development. We also have with us Mr. Jason Dennis. He is an economist who has been working in the public sector since 2008 with focus on policy review and analysis, monitoring and evaluation, project appraisal, and capacity development in results-based management across the public service. He is currently the monitoring and evaluation coordinator, in addition to being the interim leader at the Public Investment Management Secretariat, more popularly known as PIMSEC, which is an entity within the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. And his primary task, and this is very important, is to ensure that projects that are being developed for implementation are properly designed, in addition to having a robust M&D framework that can be used to monitor progress during the implementation phase, as well as assess project success in terms of effectiveness and efficiency during the evaluation phase. So I'm very happy to welcome Jason, Sean, and Sean to this to the panel, and we're going to also punctuate this discussion with questions from the audience, because I'm sure you might have questions for either Hugo or Brian. So I just want to begin. I just want to open the discussion with this question. Based on the two presentations that have been delivered, it would seem that M&E is a best practice. So why is it that the uptake is so low? Why is it that we're not seeing it as an integral part? We know it should be there, but we're not seeing that uptake. We're not seeing it as an integral part of our projects. Can any of you share some light on that?
I think the first presenter established that when you're talking about M&E, there is need for a champion.
Mm-hmm.
And there are different levels. You need a champion at the policy level, and you need champion at the technical level. Now, it is very important that in establishing a monitoring and evaluation system, that the value added for M&E is sold. So you have to market M&E. You have to show the value of this. Because bear in mind that M&E provides information that needs to guide decision making in order for you to design project. And building our M&E system, it needs to be clearly established that there's a feedback loop that needs to inform future design of projects. So M&E needs champions and need to be sold as a value added to project results.
Thank you. Sean, do you want to
Yes.
add?
Yes, good morning. Is it still morning? Afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. I just want to add that as an NGO who has been around for 30 years next year, we are still not where we ought to be with M&E. And I want to add M&E and L, which is learning. We started out as a Addiction Alert organization, and we operate an island-wide telephone lifeline where we collect data on substance abuse and feedback that to the National Council on Drug Abuse. So we really had data collection and some evaluation in our roots. Over the years, we have really, I would want to say, slacked off, maybe not because of us, and I'm happy that Brian is here and Arvil stepped out, but in his presentation, he admitted that in the first phase of CSJP, there was no formal evaluation. We were a partner in CSJP for about 8 or 9 years, and every year we would put evaluation in our budget, and it would be kicked out. Yeah? And so the first level of is the funders. You know, not all funders appreciate the importance of M&E, and at that time, CSJP didn't. I noticed, however, that there was an impact evaluation after about 10 years, right? And I think we lost a lot over the 8 or 9 years that we operated as a part of the CSJP. The burden that we faced is that we as an NGO, or all NGOs, we can't afford internal M&E staff, right? And so we want to collect our own data and to analyze them, but there's a cost burden to us. There's also a cost issue on the other side in terms of the practitioners, the consultants who we hire to carry out evaluation exercises. I just want to share, this is a highly expensive thing, right, Maureen? I mean, I consulted with an evaluation consultant recently for an EU project, and I said, you know, we have about $750,000 in the budget. You know, she said, well, that's small, man. You know? And I mean, I would believe that for NGOs, that is a lot of money. And so, I mean, in terms of developing an appreciation for M&E, it's at all levels. Funding, the NGOs who are implementing, and clearly on the ground for those participants who benefit from our interventions.
Thank you. So you're really speaking to two key challenges that pose barriers to the integration of M&E within our systems. One is funding, of course, and also local talent, that technical local technical staff.
And the funding for local talent.
Right.
And there are solutions and proposals that we could put forward for that.
All right, thank you. All right, I'm gonna accept questions from the floor. Oh, okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So the first thing is that kudos to the CSJP for getting on track with M&E. I think one of the biggest challenges really is that you're correct. Us M&E and L persons were seen as the police. You were hired by firms like, or places like JSIF, but initially you had to get the staff to almost want you to come into their space because they're thinking, what did we not do properly, which will be discovered in the midterm evaluation or the final evaluation. I think that if the JSIP type and CSJP begin to appreciate the importance of M&E to changing and making a difference in their projects, it will help. Now to Sean's, the point Sean raised, however, on the cost of M&E has to be built into, it's not expensive. This is a relative term we use. It's expensive. But how many times if you don't do the M&E, which is the baseline, because we start off when we start the project, we do a midterm evaluation, but there's no baseline. So we don't know we're comparing to what to begin with, and it presents a problem for us, really. You can't ask a person living in a community, do you remember what you felt like 5 years ago before we started? Because trust me, they ain't remembering that, all right? So that investment that you have made in that community, you can't even begin to have an idea. Another concern that we have from our team in terms of M&E is the focus is always on outputs. How many people went to vocational training? Not on the issue of have we made a difference in his or her life, how do they perceive things now versus before? So I think that the donors must focus a lot more on the outcome. Every time you hear it, results basis about how many you did, not about how much you have begun to make a difference. And to realize also, you haven't failed if in 2 years you haven't changed something, because it will come eventually if you have done it correctly. And for the NGOs, I believe we need to look at creating a pool or a system whereby maybe using the experience of the CSJP, how do we actually, everything is web-based these days. How do you feed in basic data to give you some interim results about how you're doing as well? Because I understand the constraint. And yes, Sean, our consultants are perceived to be expensive, but we are critical to the development agenda. We're not the outcasts or the ones to be treated as we are a problem or we're expensive. We are critical to the development agenda as well.
Thank you so much for those thoughts. I will applaud as well. Okay, we have another point from the floor. Go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm just wondering, for CSJP, in the absence of M&E framework or a system that was implemented prior to CSJP 3, what would have informed your shift in terms of focus of CSJP 3 as opposed to CSJP 1 and 2? What would have influenced continued spending in particular directions, or what would have influenced the pull of funds in other directions, given that there was no framework in place?
Well, good question, and thank you for that. Now, the formalizing of M&E in CSJP was brilliant. However, before the formal system was in place, persons were capturing data on the ground. They were speaking to persons. They were speaking to people from the selected communities, and they were engaging persons, and they were engaging NGOs. And as McGregor said, the pushback, the first thing to cut was M&E. So there must be some point in time that you decide, okay, we need to do this. And we did a final evaluation, and upon that, we got useful information from that evaluation. We do research international to see what works and what didn't work to support our intervention. So not only that we're not doing it in-house, but we look at external sources. We relied on our IDPs who guide us so well in implementing our M&E. So those are some of the things that we live off before CSJP 3 robust M&E system was in place.
All right, thank you. I just want to, okay, does anyone else want to respond? Okay.
Good afternoon. Just a quick practical question. Hugo mentioned the name of one of the softwares, which is free. A-Script, is it A-Script? And the moderator also mentioned the name of a software that was being used by CSJP, but I didn't quite catch it. If you could kindly repeat that.
Well, I mentioned R-Script, which is an analytic software, but it's a free source. So you can run a number of predictive analysis on it once you learn, but the language is rather technical. So it's close to programming language, so you'd have to have a full understanding of what entails in using that kind of software.
Okay, thank you.
And we also mentioned Upshot, but that's not a question? the upshot software that we use for our client database. And we got that through FIFA Peace from the UK Football Association.
Okay, Hugo?
Yeah, in our case, there is a statistical software that is underneath the database, but the user interface is web-based. So you can do your reports without any programming knowledge.
Okay.
Okay, Ganesh Shetty, child psychiatrist, and there's a perception amongst the implementers, the service providers, that people in M&E don't get it, that they don't know the inadequacies of input and the ongoing factors which might affect the outcome, and also the need for the encouragement, things to change, things to be put in place as we go along, especially long-term project. For example, we did a intervention to help children with post-traumatic stress disorder in West Kingston, and M&E folks were detached from the implementers, did an evaluation. We always have pre and post, and the results were 1/3 did better, 1/3 remained the same, 1/3 did worse. And it was very discouraging to my colleagues who are involved in it, but I had to counsel them that there are so many ongoing violent incidents and accidents happening to these kids which will impact their outcome. So the question is, how are we going to change this perception? The M&E people are actually H&E, which is are here to harass you and embarrass you. 2, M&E, which is here to motivate you and encourage you. What are your strategies?
Now, in everything, you have to give, you have to celebrate certain achievements, small achievements. So if you want to change some person's behavior, you'd have to present and provide feedback on a continuous basis and to highlight small achievement and praise small achievement. Now, M&E, as the picture shows, this big man and he's looking down on some small people, is not fashionable. So we need to make it become more fashionable. So we know that there are going to be a lot of upskilling because you don't have a lot of courses being offered by universities. So that needs to change. So for us to change the paradigm, we have to upskill persons so that they become aware of what M&E entails and what's the benefit of monitoring and evaluation.
And I'll just add to my colleague. Now let me speak from the government of Jamaica point of view. Now in 2010, while I was at the Cabinet Office, the government of Jamaica approved what we call the Performance Monitoring and Evaluation System, where M&E was introduced within the government service. Now initially, we had a whole lot of pushback as we sought to roll out the program within our ministries, departments, and agencies. But over time, as we sell the benefit of M&E, we recognize that change management was very important, and that is a critical element within an organization. You have to have a change management component when you're talking about M&E, right? Because remember now, the culture change will take some time, so that is very important. So it is critical for individuals to understand the benefit of the M&E, because remember now, it is data that should guide project design. It is data that should guide implementation. And what I find is that oftentimes we are conducting M&E without first doing a stakeholder analysis. You have to find out what are the needs of the stakeholders, what are the level of interest, the influence of your stakeholders, and build your M&E system around participation of your stakeholders. And at the end of the day, when that is built into the framework, there is better buy-in into your M&E system.
I want to also ask Hugo to just comment in Honduras, or certainly for the, on the projects that you have worked. Is this an issue? And if so, how was it addressed?
As Professor Wallace was mentioning, I think that in Honduras we have the problem that we don't, what happens if things go bad? Who's to blame? And therefore, when we set the targets, we don't set it that high. And I think that is incorrect, I think. And we're looking like forward on ways on how to design addressable targets, but it's really hard. Last year we had a big discussion about we were setting the target of the homicide rate, and there was like nobody knew and nobody wanted to compromise for an actual number. So we are in 43. Where are we going to be in 5 years? And we couldn't come with one number.
Should I say that's sad? All right, we have another question. This will be we're taking our last two questions from the floor because I have 5 minutes left.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm Joan Jonas. I'm with Development Options Limited. We wanted to find out what are the ethical considerations for engaging control communities in doing your impact evaluations or general evaluations. Thank you.
Well, very good question, because this is what we are grappling with now in terms of treating with a control group when you're doing impact evaluation with control trials. Now, it's something that has to be done because you normally do your impact evaluation when you're piloting your interventions with the mindset to upscale your intervention. So you might exclude some persons or some communities now, but when you upscale your intervention, you will include these communities after the fact. So I know some ethical dilemma is with it, but we have to do it just to get the evidence to say that the program works. What if you implement a program and you don't have any evidence that it works? Would you like to upscale a program that fails, or would you like to upscale a program that shows results? So you have to choose what you need. A, the farmer X principle, or the farmer Y principle based on the presentation.
All right, thank you.
Good
Sure,
afternoon.
hang on one sec. Hugo wants to comment. Go ahead.
Yeah, we have that issue especially with projects founded by IDB and the World Bank, where they, as a requirement, like quasi-experimental evaluation, so you have to have like the target group and the control group. But in the Honduran Investment Fund, we find this unfair. Because I mean, why in the world would a community that is not getting nothing going to fill this an hour-and-a-half questionnaire? And that was the question. So the solution for that problem was the following. So we designed the project in phases. So in the phase 1, you got the target group and then the control group, and that will be like for 5 years. But then the next 5 years, the control group will become the target group. So that makes more justice. And then they are eager to participate. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's a very useful recommendation. A final question from the floor?
Good afternoon. I am representing the community of the Greater Augustown, and I welcome the discussion here today, but I have a more grave concern that a lot of our discussions are all high-level discussions that don't resonate with the persons at the grassroots. Now we're talking about M&E, and I'm very moved by the presentation from CSJP because I'm still waiting to get a list from CSJP of all the persons who've been engaged in Augustown over the last 3 to 5 years. And if you have such a robust M&E system and you're not able to produce this list, it leaves some question in mind. Secondly, I am relatively new to the CDC program, and I believe for the last 2 years that based on data that has been collected, the organization should have by now developed, in very simple terms, a manual that says, here are some projects that have worked and some ideas that have not worked. Augustine has been brought up in the spotlight now with the CAPRI research and this law about whether or not the impact it's creating. And the truth is that implementers, who are your community-based organizations and CDCs, play an equally important role in the development of any impact that you want to achieve within the community. Now, I believe what is happening is that there is too much of a divide at this level with what is taking place. There has to be a greater collaboration, and these are the nice, sexy terms I hear being branded about. But in reality, it does not impact on the ground, and it's the same reason why somebody who is not necessarily at a high literacy rate will understand what your SDGs are. They don't even know what SD and G put together could mean. And when you talk about development goals in 2030, communities like Augustine don't understand the process of building from within to change itself, because over the years we've been put on a dependency syndrome by our leaders. So we have problems with sustainability, and this is information that should be coming out in your M&E processes. You talk about the cost of M&E. What you should be looking at, your M&I team should also include members of the community-based organizations. If you're going to design a program, then it means you now need to work with the stakeholder to say what are the implements to be involved in this program so that they can ensure that the data that is captured, because garbage in, garbage out, remember that principle, ensuring that the data that is captured is relevant and accurate so that we can then predict more effective and factual results to drive better decision making. So I'm taking away from this that I'm asking for tangible responses. Something as simple as a manual that says, over the last 5 years, CSJP, we've been involved in 10 communities. These are programs that we have seen that works. These are programs that we don't recommend right now because of what we've seen. Another part of it is capacity. When you go into a community like Augustine, you want to identify that the capacity, the human capacity is there to develop, and not only develop, but to sustain effective programming so that the community can appreciate after 5 years what it is to build itself based on the capacity that you have invested.
Well, thank you for your question. Now, we're not aware of being asked for a list. Now, CSJP operate like this. We engage community members before designing any intervention in CSJP. So if he was a part of that construct, he would have been engaged. Now, even from CSJP 1, to engage the community persons was the main staple for CSJP. I am a community person. I was involved in volunteerism in the Castle Park community, and I'm a product of that construct. So I am taken aback by some of the comments that the person made, because I am an example of a community person coming into CSJP, working before CSJP. I was working and volunteering in my community in Castle Park, and then being employed by CSJP. Now, CSJP employed a number of persons from the community so that we have that knowledge inside CSJP, and I am such a member. Now, I was part of my CDC just like you. I was a treasurer, project officer. I've implemented so many projects in my community before CSJP, taking me on CSJP, add value to CSJP, because I could bring that knowledge that I had dealing with people and dealing with community persons. So I am not aware of that, sir. And if you want to send a request, please send it formally to CSJP, because I am not aware of a list being requested from Augustine. Next, now, whenever we're designing any intervention in CSJP, we have stakeholders analysis, and our community is our main stakeholders. And such, just as our parenting program, we knew that workshops didn't work. So we had to get a more robust parenting program, which takes parenting trainers inside homes. This was a result of wanting to serve our clients and giving them the best possible service.
All right, thank you. Our time is up, but just a takeaway from the last question/comment that the last person made. I think there is a call for increased involvement of community members within the process, particularly monitoring and evaluation. And certainly communication is key. So if you do go in to conduct an evaluation study or to do any kind of monitoring activity, it's important to return to the community and to share those findings, and most importantly, link those findings to any kind of improvement in the intervention. So I think that is a takeaway based on that comment that was made. All right, I just want to thank my panelists for just facilitating and participating in this very, very robust discussion. We had other things that we wanted to explore, but time will not allow, and I know you're perhaps very hungry. So I just want to thank you again for your participation.